Something big is happening in Warhammer, something I never ever expected. And frankly, I think this could be one of the most important moments in its entire history, because Games Workshop are doing something new. They're doing something dangerous. No, it's not a price drop, more's the pity, but it's something that we only know about because it was accidentally leaked or revealed during the Las Vegas preview show that they did last week, which makes it all the more delicious. So let's talk about this accidental leak because it is massive. But first, if we're going to talk about the show, then we have to talk about all the reveals too, because it had a lot of massive stuff and has pretty much paved the way for all of 2025's Warhammer content. So as a treat, let's start with my current favorite Games Workshop game right now, Age of Sigmar, which, yes, I am as surprised as you are that it's currently my favorite war game. If you had told me that 3 years ago, I probably would have punched you in the nose. But it's true. Since I got really into trying the newest edition of Age of Sigmar, against all my prejudices, I have been forced to conclude that it's actually a good, fun game, probably just behind Middle-earth strategy battles in terms of Games Workshop's absolute best. And while I currently play Skaven, partly because I still have all my Island of Blood miniatures and they're going with me to my grave, I've always had a bit of a sweet spot for the Vampire Count faction ever since I bought a bag of them from an acquaintance for a very cheap price, all because he urgently needed to buy some illegal drugs. That is actually a true story, I'm not making that up. That's just Warhammer on the streets of Belfast. And in Age of Sigmar, the Vampire Count faction is spiritually succeeded by the Soulblight Gravelords, and they're getting brand new models as revealed at the LVO. And these models are... controversial. So firstly, we got some new old skeletons. I'm saying new old because these already existed, but Games Workshop have said that they're actually brand new sculpts. Building them will be different than the previous models because you're never gonna believe this. You'll just never believe it. But it turns out the tiny, spindly, delicate miniatures like the skeletons are sometimes prone to breakage. So GW are having to make them a bit easier to build, a bit sturdier, they're updating the sprues, and as a result, these new skeletons are pretty cool, but that's kind of because the old ones were pretty cool, so pretty much nothing has changed. At least they're updating them just to be better for consumers, that's neat. Still though, the first real new model reveal was the brand new upcoming White King on Skeletal Steed. And, I don't know about this one, honestly. Mostly because this guy is replacing the previous White King on Steed, and frankly, I think the old one looks better. It's less busy, I prefer the lance over the poleaxe. The old one has the iconic winged helm, and if you don't have wings on your helm, how are people gonna know that you're important? And yeah, okay, the new one has more going on the base, but I mean, like, I'm not buying models for the bases. Although that said, the new White King has an alternative build loadout where he wields a sword instead of the poleaxe, and I think that looks a lot better than the other, so maybe it's just the angle the Games Workshop have shown this model off with. So I'm gonna reserve judgment on this guy. But I'm not reserving judgment, however, on the new Barrow Knights because, these hurt. Look, I love Barrow Knights, in theory, but seeing these new versions, they're just not doing a lot for me. I think broadly they do look good, it's just that the tattered cloth on the horses looks very thick and plasticky, and frankly, I just don't care for skeleton horses, even at the best of times. I mean, I'll accept skeletal man, but skeletal horses, it'll never happen. I draw the line there. It's just unrealistic. That said, I do love that the musician has the same trumpet as the old Skeleton Warriors kit from Warhammer Fantasy, which I still have a box of. Check it out. And I must admit, the pose on the banner bearer is pretty cool. In fact, overall, I like how all these knights are posed because they look really slow. Contrast how the skeletal horses here are posed compared to the Chaos Knights, and they just look so much more ponderous. The horses are very lethargic, and that's a neat touch. I do like that. Still, I think Nightmare horses would have looked a lot better for these guys. Speaking of which, we also get to see the new Vampire Lord on Nightmare Steed, and okay, this is what I'm talking about. Now, I just need to get it out of the way before we go any further. I hate the hair. It looks like it's alive as if the vampire is wearing a snake toupee and it's about to leap off his head just to kill Mo. So I will be cutting that hair off. It's just a little bit too much. What is it with vampires and having too weird of a hair? However, everything else about this model is baller. It's got a fantastically dramatic pose. The horse looks perfectly emaciated with just the right amount of stylized vampire armor. The Vampire Lord himself has an awesome mantle. He's got the cloak billowing out. Just overall a massive upgrade on the old version, which My god, that does not look as good as it does in my memories. And check out the alternative Nosferatu head sculpt over here. Ladies, I can fix him. Even if he does insist on drinking a lot of blood, which is a really bad habit, and bad habits can be hard to break. I mean, I should know. I have a closet filled with outrageously adorned bolo ties, and I can't stop buying more. And yes, I am very ashamed. But that's why I'm happy that today's video is sponsored by Fume. Not that Fume will stop you from buying outrageously adorned bolo ties that you have to keep secret from the world, but more that Fume will help you break bad habits. You see, Fume is an award-winning flavored air device that draws flavor into your mouth and can help satisfy your oral fixation free from any nasty nicotine or vapor. Because flavored air is quickly becoming the leading alternative to vaping and smoking, and Fume is the leader in flavored air. Basically, it's the real-life version of Alakir the Wind Lord, ruler over Skywall, cleverest of the elemental lords, he who sits upon the throne of the four winds. But, you know, this version. And because Fume is simply flavored air and not a wind lord, it's not addictive, but it can help break bad habits while also calming anxiety. Fume helps replace the hand-to-mouth oral fixation that can come from bad habits, and it helps calm nervous tension through fidgeting. It even comes with little magnets so you can fiddle around with it at all times, which is great for me because I am a fiddler, which doesn't sound great to say out loud, I've just realized. But Fume have helped over 300,000 people build better habits. So try Fume today, and if you order the Journey Pack now using my code DISCOURSE, you'll get a free Fume topper, an awesome accessory to level up your experience. So go to tryfume.com/discourse or simply scan the QR code on screen. There's a load of different flavors available for you to try, like sparkling grapefruit, crisp mint, orange vanilla, or my favorite, maple pepper. So thanks to Fume for sponsoring today's video. Oh, and of course, before we move off, there's also this Prince Vordai character. He's a named character who's been in the Soulblight Gravelords book for years, but just never had a model. Well, now he does, and he's probably a lot of people's favorite reveal from this entire show, but for me, I think he just looks okay. Sometimes less is more, and he is not less. I do like his shield, though. Bloody chalices. You can't beat it. The undead dragon he's riding, though, is posed pretty awkwardly, and it also happens to double as a new monster kit for the entire faction. It's called a Revenant Draconeth Undead Dragon. In theory, an undead dragon could be really cool, but I think this one is a little bit of a mess. Overall, the actual aesthetic of the undead dragon looks pretty neat, but the posing is just awkward. It's far too hunched, its silhouette is just too constrained, and this is probably going to get me stabbed at the next Warhammer Fest, but honestly, I think the Games Workshop sculpting is being held back by their fear of flight stands. This model could have looked a lot cooler if it was posed like the Lord of the Rings winged Nazgul model, which just looks absolutely incredible when it's on the table. I don't think this will look quite as good, but that's enough undead for one day. It's time we talk about the biggest model reveals of the show from the most popular Games Workshop game. That's right, it's Necromunda. Now, the Necromunda model range is one of Games Workshop's best, but their reveals at this show were very disappointing, to be honest. Not for the models themselves. I think the new models that they've shown off are pretty good. They're a nomad war party, which frankly, they just look fine. Though personally, I prefer when Necromunda is focused on the gangs inside the hives rather than, you know, the hillbillies of the set and living in the woods. Or dunes? I don't even know what it looks like outside. Apocalyptic wasteland. But what I'm really disappointed by is the day one DLC that was also announced alongside these models. That's right, we're gonna get a new upgrade kit that was also revealed. And sorry, but why aren't these upgrades not simply included in the same box? I mean, these Necromunda models are hardly cheap. Why not include all the options together? Add in another sprue or two. I mean, other companies include way more plastic for less than Games Workshop, so it's wild to simply expect people to buy 2 products just to field the options of a single box. I mean, Games Workshop prices are already fucking mental. They should include every single option. Unless, of course, the upgrade sprue is arbitrarily made out of resin, in which case, why? But also, regardless, other companies have both resin and plastic in the same boxes for their products, and they're much smaller companies than Games Workshop. Now, this is overall just an indignity, an anti-consumer standard developed by Games Workshop and is floating by completely unnoticed by most wargamers. But not me, not Discourse. That's why you're subscribed to the channel, because I'm calling out the anti-consumer bullshit when it happens. Which leads us, of course, to Warhammer 40k, where it finally happened. No, not 9/11. Something much worse. Girls. Ugh. Women, they're invading our spaces, boys. There's not a female miniature in the Imperial Guard. Ugh. Which has actually genuinely been the reaction to this new reveal online. Apparently, it's now controversial for women to be in the Imperial Guard, which is kind of weird to me because I'm pretty sure we've had women in the Imperial Guard since like forever. I don't get that reaction at all. Either way, I like this model. She's a named character called Lanky, I don't know. We've seen her before. In fact, I think it was literally last year that we last saw her, so it's kind of weird that she's back again, but as a new sculpt. I guess she's the new Astra Militarum main character, the new Yarrick, replacing our beautiful Ironhand Strachan model. What, Ironhand Strachan wasn't the main character of your army? Weird. As a model though, I really like her. She looks great, though personally, I just use her as a generic officer, simply to add some variety to the otherwise pretty samey officer squad that Games Workshop currently sell. I mean, the new flag carrier looks pretty cool and is also a priest, which bonus, that's pretty neat. The commissar model also has a very unique pose. There's a couple of vet guardsmen. Yeah, it's pretty neat. I like this. Honestly, I'd love to see more command squad models just like this, because I play a lot of Prohammer, which is like 5th edition Warhammer 40k, and Imperial Guard back then, they used a ton of platoon command squads, and I could use more officer models as a result, like thousands more. Seriously, I have so many platoons and so many problems. And then there's just this other little thing, just a tiny reveal. Oh, it just so happens to be the reveal of a brand new Chaos sub-faction, Emperor's Children. They are finally here. It feels like we've been waiting for them for a really long time. Personally, I've been waiting for Chaos SPS Marines that worship Slaanesh for like 20 years, since like Codex 3.5, so let's get into it. Now, right, the first model that we saw was Lucius, and I have to say, he is a major upgrade on his old model. It's kind of the same idea, but far superior. I really like this model. It looks incredibly cool. I dig the tongue lolling out of his mouth, the fact that his whip is an extension of his own body. I mean, that's pretty chaos. Though I must admit, I miss the faces he used to have all over his sexy body. I mean, he's gonna be pretty lonely now without all those faces, right? Still, overall, fantastic model. Then next up, we have the Lord's Exultant, and these guys are interesting. There's parts I love here, like the cloaks that share a visual design language with the Hedonites of Slaanesh from Age of Sigmar. I really like that unifying theme. I dig the chains, I dig the weird Geiger armor, but I gotta admit, I don't like the heads either on the body or on the guns. But upside, nipple rings. They're delightful. Love those. Still, this is a Slaanesh release, so, you know, where there's pleasure, there must be pain as well. And that leads us to the Lord the Lord Kaki Phone-ist. I don't like this model. I don't like it. I hate it. In fact, the best part is the paint scheme of the zebra loincloth, but otherwise, I just don't get it. I mean, sure, he has an organ on his back, but his pose is bizarre. It looks like he's squaring up to someone outside a pub, trying to look taller than everybody else around him. Just none of this model works for me, from the strange hoofs to the cartoon heads on his backpack. Sorry. He's made up for by the new Chaos Space Marines, however. This is the sexy version of Chaos Space Marines. These are called Tormentors. Overall, I like these. They look fine. They're kind of the stupid, sexy Flanders version of the basic Chaos Space Marine kit. The Sergeant is posed exactly like the old Lucius model, which is kind of neat. I mean, overall, I think they're fine. I like how they all do knife crime, or have the capacity to do knife crime. That's fun. Still, these look like they only have 5 different bodies, but Games Workshop keeps showing them as 10 models, so it's the same sprue repeated, and likely for the same cost as any other Games Workshop product. Still, of course, it's Emperor's Children, so we have to see new Noise Marines, and Games Workshop did indeed show them off. Now let's just get it out of the way. We have to just accept it as reality and move on. They don't have guitars. They're not metalheads. That's not happening, so bit of a shame. Instead, they're gonna have big old guns with faces on them. Still, I feel like the Noise Marines are missing something right now. As they're being depicted by the heavy metal team, they feel very clean, and the sculpts themselves just don't look very alien, nor do they have any weird body horror elements. I mean, they remind me of Space Marine Devastator squads in all the worst ways. They're kind of closer to the original Jess Goodwin aesthetic rather than the Adrian Smith art, which is iconic, and that's kind of disappointing. At least the new flawless blades look incredible though. These are brand new models, and when I saw them, I realized exactly what my problem is with Emperor's Children, and it's just that, well, they're another Space Marine faction. And yes, I understand. That is the literal entire lore of Emperor's Children. But the models here that Games Workshop have shown off that stray furthest from the Space Marines aesthetic are the best parts. I mean, look at the flawless here. They look unique, like they're actual nightmares. And honestly, I'd prefer more of that rather than what we've gotten here. I mean, imagine if instead of sexy Space Marines, we got more of a fully space version of Hedon Knights of Slaanesh with tons more cultists and less power armor, but more Xenobite Xerxes in space. Huh? That would be pretty badass. I mean, more than ever, you can kind of see that the sculptors at Games Workshop are straining against the basic Space Marine design aesthetics that they've been boxed into with Emperor's Children, and I'm afraid this release, therefore, does nothing to quell the allegations that 40k is a little bit of a problem right now. So overall, I think the Emperor's Children release looks fine, but the incredible, and I mean incredible, Adrian Smith art has just not translated over into the miniatures. Maybe if the paint scheme is changed a little bit. I mean, the heavy metal paint style, it is very clean, but right now, faction is just a bit of a mixed bag. And unfortunately, you're not gonna get to pick and choose what models to buy because they are being delivered exclusively in a paywalled army bundle. Oh boy. And yes, I know some people like these, and I honestly don't mind bundles when they're just bundles and they offer a discount on models, but that's not what this is. This is going to be the only way to buy these for a period of time, and that means that consumers have less choice. You can't just pick up one squad. You're gonna have to buy exactly what Games Workshop want you to buy, and that is bad for consumers. Less choice is bad for consumers. So I wish Games Workshop would stop doing early access and instead just release the full factions, including a bundle alongside that. But let's move on. So believe it or not, an entire new sort of faction, well, it's a sub-faction really, for Warhammer 40k was not the biggest news to come out of the LVO, which is insane to say, because Games Workshop also accidentally leaked that there will be, in fact, something entirely unexpected for Warhammer Fantasy. I mean, yes, they showed off the High Elves as we thought they would. High Elves were never really my thing. What Games Workshop showed, they look good. Classic models are back. Yeah, they showed a new High Elf battalion as well, and that's a pretty good bundle is what I'm talking about. Honestly, the Warhammer Fantasy battalions are some of the best value products that Games Workshop sell, and considering that most of the sprues in those boxes are ancient now, that's pretty good. But they're pretty price competitive with other companies, even against like Mantic Games, which is not usual for Games Workshop. But okay, whatever, we expected High Elves to be announced. The bigger news was, so get this. Throughout the show, Games Workshop showed these roadmaps for every game, and these are actual roadmaps this time. And roadmaps are great for consumers. It takes a really long time to build and paint an army, so it's nice to know, what army's getting new models and codices in the future, so that's good. I wish there'd be more detail on these roadmaps, but sure, I'll take it. And for Warhammer The Old World, they showed this roadmap. This looks pretty standard, right? Well, look again, because there's this blank canvas that is obviously meant to tease an upcoming refresh of another faction, right? Well, unless you zoom in closer and enhance. I said enhance. Enhance? Okay, too much enhance. Back up. That's just the new Beastman Crawl Mall model, and I'm the only one on the planet that cares about it. And it looks good, but still. Back up, and there. Okay, right. This is actually what we're looking for. You can see rocks, huh? Exciting. Well, just some rocks. Who cares, right? Wrong. These rocks have actually been traced to art. Art from an image that shows this. Yes, that's right. This art that is from Cathay, which can mean two things. Either Games Workshop picked the entire wrong art to put in as a blank canvas, or for the first time in like 20 to 30 years, Warhammer Fantasy is getting a brand new playable miniature wargame faction, and that is huge. This is an entirely new faction. And while some people have been skeptical that Cathay is coming to the game, in my opinion, this leak is totally clenched. It is almost 100% certain we're gonna see Cathay, and that is so cool. But then also, just the other day, Games Workshop updated the old world map on the website, and if you look on it, What's that just north of Petunia there? Oh, that's right, it's a Cathay ship. Guys, this is 100% certain. I'm getting my hopes up. I'm planning the wedding. This is happening. Cathay is coming to Warhammer the Old World, and this is massive. Seeing the OG setting, the OG Warhammer setting get expanded means that the Old World is no longer just simply a caretaker product, a seat warmer designed for GW to just opportunistically make even more money on old sprues and nostalgia, but is now actually going to get real development and iteration, genuine additions to the game. And Cathay is such a fantastic choice for this as a new faction because, I mean, if you don't know Cathay, they are basically Fantasy China, which is weirdly a very unique vibe in wargaming. We don't often get to see Chinese flavored faction in this hobby outside of, you know, Chinese historical games, but even they are very rare. And even better, this also opens the door to even more factions. We could get Chaos Dwarves, Albion, Fomorians, hell, Tilia and Estelia were also just added to that same updated Old World map too, and that map also shows, by the way, Kislev, the lands of the Chaos Dwarves to the east, and even Araby to the south. Guys, we might see an Araby faction in the next few years. Sorcerer Kings in Warhammer Fantasy, that is now possible, and that is super cool. New factions means tons of new Warhammer Fantasy miniatures, which means new sculpts, new designs, and all of them designed for an old school game where models are actually designed to be game pieces, to rank up, to have customizable weapons, different heads, posability, something that is sorely lacking from a lot of modern Games Workshop kits. This could be a new renaissance. People could learn what it is about the older models that were so good when it comes to actually building them. This is absolutely massive for Warhammer. It's way bigger than Emperor's Children in my opinion. I am so excited by this development. It's made me so much more interested in Warhammer the Old World. Just, you know, hopefully they get those legacy factions and start making them more official for the game. So I'm going to be following the Old World a lot closer going forward. If you want to keep up with the Warhammer and wargaming news, then subscribe to the channel or even check out my Patreon and help me keep going on this whole thing. And you'll also get access to bonus videos, live streams, and a supportive hobby community. You can check that out at patreon.com/discoursminiatures. I can only do this with your support, and a massive thanks to my patrons, especially CryptoKev, and a big thanks to Fume for sponsoring today's video, and I'll catch you all next time. Bye-bye!